In recent developments, Russia has begun a significant reorganization of its military presence in Syria, with satellite images revealing the dismantling and transport of military equipment from the Mymimim air base located in Syria's Latakia province. The images, captured by Maxar Technologies, depict two large Russian transport aircraft, specifically An-124s, stationed at the airfield, loading military equipment. Additionally, footage shows a helicopter being dismantled nearby, further suggesting a process of decommissioning or relocating key assets. This move is notable in the broader context of Russia's military strategy in the Middle East and reflects both the evolving dynamics of the Syrian conflict and Russia's shifting priorities on the global stage. The Mymimim air base has been a cornerstone of Russia's military operations in Syria since Moscow's intervention in 2015. It has served as a critical hub for airstrikes, logistical support, and intelligence operations in the region. The base's strategic importance cannot be overstated, as it has allowed Russia to project power across the Middle East, support its ally Bashar al-Assad's regime, and secure its foothold in a geopolitically important region. The Russian military's presence in Syria has provided Moscow with significant leverage in international negotiations, serving as a counterbalance to U.S. influence in the region. However, recent satellite images of military equipment being loaded onto An-124 aircraft suggest that Russia may be reassessing its long-term involvement in the country. The reasons behind Russia's apparent reduction in military operations in Syria are multifaceted and complex. One significant factor is the ongoing war in Ukraine, which has placed enormous strain on Russia's military resources. The Kremlin has been forced to divert significant personnel and equipment to Ukraine, where its forces are engaged in a prolonged and costly conflict. The need to bolster Russian forces in Ukraine has likely resulted in a re-evaluation of Russia's military commitments elsewhere, including Syria. The use of the An-124 transport aircraft, which are capable of carrying heavy loads, may indicate that critical equipment is being relocated either back to Russia or to other regions where it is deemed more necessary. Russia's military operations in Syria were initially framed as a means of supporting the Assad regime against rebel forces, many of which were backed by the West and regional actors. Over time, Russia's involvement deepened, with its military providing critical air support, intelligence, and the deployment of advanced weaponry, including air defense systems. However, as the situation in Syria has evolved, and with Assad's grip on power appearing more secure after years of devastating civil war, the strategic necessity of maintaining such a large military presence has come into question. Syria's ongoing political fragmentation, with various factions vying for control, and the unpredictable nature of regional geopolitics may have made Russia reconsider the cost-effectiveness of maintaining its military footprint. The reduction in Russian military presence at Mymimim is also linked to the broader context of Russia's international relationships. Over the past year, tensions have risen between Israel and Syria, particularly following Israeli airstrikes targeting Iranian and Syrian military assets in Syria. Israel has repeatedly expressed concern about the growing Iranian military footprint in Syria, which it sees as a direct threat to its national security. Russia, as a key ally of the Assad regime and a major player in Syrian affairs, has found itself in a delicate position, attempting to balance its relationship with Israel while maintaining support for the Syrian government. The increased Israeli airstrikes against Russian-made air defense systems in Syria, including the destruction of a significant portion of Syria's air defense infrastructure, may have highlighted the limits of Russia's influence in the region. These airstrikes, which have reportedly neutralized much of Syria's defensive capabilities, may have prompted Moscow to reassess its military posture in Syria, especially in the face of its inability to counter Israeli actions effectively. While the potential withdrawal of Russian military equipment from Mymimim is a significant development, it does not necessarily signal the end of Russia's involvement in Syria. Russia's presence at the Tartus naval base, located on Syria's Mediterranean coast, is unlikely to be affected by these changes. Tartus is Russia's only warm water port in the region, and it remains a crucial asset for projecting Russian military power in the Mediterranean. The Russian Navy's operations out of Tartus are central to Russia's broader strategy of maintaining a military presence in the Middle East and protecting its interests in the region. While MIMM may see a reduction in military assets, it is probable that Russia will continue to maintain a military footprint in Syria through the Tartus base, ensuring that it retains a strategic foothold in the region. Furthermore, the dismantling of equipment at MIMM could be linked to Russia's evolving military strategy in Syria. As Moscow has been actively involved in the war in Ukraine, its military priorities may have shifted, with a focus on consolidating its resources in areas deemed more critical to its national security interests. Syria, while still important for Russia's geopolitical goals, may be less of a priority as the war in Ukraine continues to unfold. Russia's ability to maintain its influence in Syria will likely be contingent on its relationships with key regional players, including Iran, Hezbollah, and Turkey. While Iran remains a strong ally of the Assad regime and is unlikely to oppose Russia's strategic retreat, the situation could create opportunities for other regional actors to expand their influence in Syria. Turkey, for example, has maintained a significant military presence in northern Syria, primarily to counter Kurdish forces that it considers to be affiliated with terrorist groups. Turkey has also been involved in diplomatic efforts to mediate between the Syrian opposition and the Assad regime, with mixed results. As Russia reduces its military presence in Syria, Turkey may seek to consolidate its influence in the country, particularly in regions where it has established military zones of control. The United States, which has been involved in Syria through its support for Kurdish forces in the fight against ISIS, will likely be closely monitoring Russia's moves. While the U.S. has maintained a relatively low-profile military presence in Syria, the withdrawal or redeployment of Russian forces could create opportunities for the U.S. to increase its influence in the region. Additionally, the U.S. and its allies may view Russia's actions as indicative of a broader strategy of reducing its commitments in the Middle East in favor of focusing on other geopolitical concerns, particularly in Ukraine. The potential reduction in Russian military presence in Syria also raises important questions about the future of the Syrian regime. While Assad remains in power, his control over large parts of the country has been significantly weakened by the ongoing civil war, which has left Syria fragmented and in a state of perpetual instability. The withdrawal of Russian assets from MIMM could further destabilize the situation in the country, as the regime may struggle to maintain control over key territories without Russian support. On the other hand, Russia may continue to exert influence over the Syrian government through diplomatic and military support, even if its physical presence in the country is reduced. The situation in Syria remains fluid, and the developments at MIMM are just one piece of the complex geopolitical puzzle in the region. Whether Russia's shift in strategy signifies a broader realignment in the Middle East or is simply a temporary logistical adjustment remains to be seen. However, it is clear that Russia's evolving military posture in Syria is a critical factor to watch in the coming months, as it will have significant implications for the future of the Syrian conflict, the balance of power in the region, and Russia's global standing.